Hello, it's Melinda from Alexis and Melinda's Art Space. On with another art journal page today. I love art journaling. So I did this one a few weeks ago. This one is what I call dry collage. So that piece of paper I was tearing up is actually some drop paper that I was had under my book when I was using other paints, and I just put excess paint down and obviously took the green and put green spots on it. So that's a great way to build up interesting papers to use later in your art journal or your other projects. That paper it's like newspaper but without the print on it. It's what we get here, and you'll hear me, long-time subbies will hear me talk about this a lot. We can go to the deli in Australia in a supermarket and ask for a small portion of usually sliced meat or from the deli. So that's like what they wrap it in. They put it in a plastic bag and they wrap it in, especially IGA, and it's unprinted, which is really cool. So every time I go to IGA, my daughter likes Cabana, so I end up with a lot of this paper, and it works in really well because it's quite thin. It's really good to collage with, and I love to do it on my jelly plate as well. So just tearing that up and adding it in different spots. So I wanted to play with my Dylusions paper dolls, and have decided to stamp a lot of them out, and I actually took some to my photocopier and enlarged and shrunk them. I don't know whether you're supposed to do that, but it's in my art journal, so it's okay. I just find that sometimes the sizes of the stamps, and I do it to all branded stamps, I don't do it just to my Dylusions ones, I find some of the stamps, when I work in larger books, they look funny because they're not larger images. Does that make sense? Yeah, clear as mud. So I usually spend, before COVID-19 hit, a lot of time on trains. So I would stamp and photocopy all these images, and I'd sit there on the train for 2.5 hours and fussy cut. So that would fill in my hours. And also it's great to be able to have a lot of stamped images there, and Diane Reevely does this as well, to just pick around and, I'll have this head with this body and I'll use this image, other than having to go, I've got to get my stamps out, I've got to stamp something, I've got to go enlarge it on my photocopier if I'm enlarging an image. So it's handy to have a bulk lot of pre-cut images just to play with. I find I'm using them a whole lot more, and they're sort of my go-to stash at the moment, if that makes sense, just because they're easy to use. So I may even pre-colour some of them. My daughter and I took some on a short vacation, and we sat there and pre-coloured some of them. So it's great to sit there and pre-colour them as well if you have a lot of waiting around, usually waiting for your kids. As I said, pre-COVID I had a lot of that. Now I do a lot of waiting at home. I don't travel, haven't been on a train in, oh my god, since March. That is almost a record for me. So now I decided I need to colour the images, so I grabbed out some watercolours. They're just kids sort of watercolours. The top blue palette I believe is Semco from Spotlight, and the bottom one I believe is it Montmark? Could be Montmark. No, it's the other, it's Micador from Spotlight that I got several years ago. The only problem with these two paints is they're a bit chalky. They're nice bright colours, but I find they're a bit chalky and you lose some of the black stamped lines. But it's what I had to work with, so I decided to go with it. One day I will invest in some proper paints. I like to fool around, and hey, they work. They're a bit chalky, but I do add some more colour to them, as you'll see following on. So a lot of these are just printed onto photocopy paper, or a little heavier than photocopy paper. I think it's 160 GSM. So it's not real great for photo. It's not. I cannot talk tonight. I'm sitting here freezing for art's sake because I've turned my heater off because it's a bit loud. While I do this voiceover. So what was I saying? Now I've lost track of thought. My brain's too cold. It was like 1.8 degrees overnight here in Victoria this morning. Still haven't recovered from that. What was I saying? Nah, lost it. So just painting up the images. I'm not a great colourer, so and I sort of blame that a little on my eyesight. I do have low vision, and I actually don't have a driver's license. That might be something you don't know about me. You're learning about me in this show. So my vision is so bad I cannot drive a car, which makes life interesting. Hence why I spend so much time usually on trains. especially going south to Melbourne and north to Swan Hill. So I often take these images to colour as well when I'm waiting on my daughter's appointments. Again, not so recently, but in the future and in the past, I'm sure I will be doing that again. So I sort of add a bit of colour. The paper's not great, as I said, so I've got to be a little careful how much water I actually add to them. So you can see I'm sort of brushing off onto the paper, and I have some more of that sort of what I call deli paper, not true deli paper, like newsprint paper, under my spot, and just building up the colour off my paintbrush. And that will again come into my journal one day. I've got a big box of sort of those under papers and wipe off papers and all sorts of things to use, and you can stamp on them, you can cut them out, you can use them as backgrounds. They're so much fun. You can die cut them. So much fun what you can do with all your decorative papers. So I decided to use different heads and different bodies. Why I put rabbits' heads on, because my daughter sort of likes rabbits. We have 2 pet rabbits at the moment. They're very mischievous little bunnies. Especially one of them. He's a bit of an escape artist and likes to try to escape his cage. I believe he wants to free roam in my house, and that ain't going to happen. They've got a playpen in the corner. A playpen. I sound like children. They've got a playpen in the corner of the lounge room, and he's determined to get out of it. I don't know. Pets. Who would have them? Pets and children. So just finishing up the colouring. I also used some crazy bird, or a crazy bird as well. So basically I used the watercolours just to lay down a layer of paint, like the first layer of paint, and then I do go back over them in a minute with a second medium. So I'm working in my Altered Wine book. This is the second last page. Wow, this book has been going on and on and on. I believe this book is, well, it started as one book, split into 2 books. Possibly I started this 5 years ago. I should date my stuff. I'm going to have to start doing that. I've got 1 page to go. I've been working in other journals and nearly filled 2 other journals. This one sort of got put aside. I thought I'd finished it. So we'll do a flip through of the book when I do the last page. I had some black and white photos, and you might have seen before I stuck this paper down. And sometimes I like to incorporate those into my art journal page. Sometimes I just cover them all up. Just depends. So I decided that the colours were not bright enough as I wanted. So I grabbed my Aldi alcohol markers. Just grabbed another set of those this year too. They had different colours, so can't wait to have a play with those. I'll do an upcoming video on that. Maybe sitting there swatching them out, and I've got some of their watercolours as well. I'm keen to try those to see if they are as chalky as the other ones. So just going over and adding some more detail with the alcohol markers. The reason I like to use the alcohol markers, I don't use them to colour and shade just because my eyesight just... And it's not me, I'm not patient. Like, this is probably the amount of colouring I do. It's not shaded, it's just blocks of colour. I probably could have just gone in and went with the alcohol markers, and probably could have cut out all the actual watercolours. But it sort of adds to it. And I do trace around some of the black lines just to make them stand out a bit more on the face, after I've gone over them with the chalky watercolours. So the Aldi markers are great for this. I haven't tried to actually blend with them. Plus, I'm not using marker paper. It's just, as I said, photocopy paper. So it's not the best paper, but hey, it works for what I want to do. So I can't wait to see if last year's set and this year's set is much colour different. So I'll have to find some, I don't know, maybe some watercolour paper, or I don't have any marker paper. I will have to invest in some just to have a fool around with. But there were different numbers on the packages, I noticed, because I took a picture of my set of 12 before I went down to Aldi and did the 8:30 lineup with 50 other crazy people. There was not a lot of social distancing at my Aldi that morning. But everyone wasn't there for the art stuff. It was so funny. They were there for the massage chairs that were walking out the door. I sort of stood back and let everyone go in. I thought if I miss out, I really don't need more art supplies. But I did manage to get what I wanted, so that was really cool. Bit disappointed they didn't have the gesso this year. I'm totally off target now talking about Aldi. It's terrible. So finishing up with the markers, They have a chisel tip and a point, so you can sort of do like large areas or small areas. Most of the time I use the little chisel tip. I've had this first set of markers probably 3 or 4 years, and I've used them a lot, and they're held up really well. Oh, I was going to say, the reason I like alcohol markers is they're permanent. And if I use these images with a glue stick this time, but often I will put matte gel medium, like a liquid medium, on my images to seal them on my page. And if you do that with a water-soluble texture, or a marker, that doesn't work that well. So the alcohol markers don't bleed, so that's why I like them. Plus they're nice bright colours, and they're sort of easy to use. That's the reason I use them. And they were cheap. I think this set I paid $13 for. I think the current set this year they were down to $9. It was actually interesting while I'm finishing off drawing. I went in at 8:30 on a Wednesday, had to go back to the supermarket, had to go back to the post office and post something on Friday. And I had to go to the supermarket and get bread because, I don't know, bread just disappears in our house. And I looked at the art sets where they were, and they were absolutely obliterated. So lucky, and usually art stuff sticks around in our town. It's not that popular, but maybe with the sort of lockdown, we're arting a bit more at home. So I just grabbed a stamp set. This is just a stamp set that I grabbed from an overseas website. And you probably all know where that overseas website is. Just using our archival ink pad just to add a bit more interest in the background with these sort of like little marks and things. I could have done these just with a pen, but sometimes having an ink pad is so much easier. Just felt the background was a bit one-dimensional, just wanted to add something else to it. It's a very simple page. It didn't take me that long. Probably the most time-consuming part of it was the colouring and sort of deciding what shapes to use. That's the hard bit. So then I glue it on. I think this is an Audi glue stick as well, if I say that. So I decided to do a border around the edge. I bordered 99% of my pages. I find it just frames it, especially it breaks it up if I've got another page, the next, like a double page spread, and only one side is a particular layer and then it's different on the next page. It sort of breaks it up and gives it definition of where one stops and one goes, if that makes sense. So just using archival ink. Again, in this particular purpose, probably don't need to use archival ink, but that was the ink pad I had out. I think all my inks are archival actually, except I've got some really old ones that might not be. Usually I have my figures grounded or standing on something. These ones are sort of floating around, which is very unusual for me. Usually I don't like things floating. Things have to be sort of what I call grounded. Chop the bird's legs off because I didn't like it how the legs sat on. It's a great thing with these stamped images. You can cut them up, you can cut heads off, you can cut legs off, and it's fun just to make just funny little things. I saw someone use like Diane Reevely's human type legs on birds the other day, and I thought, oh, that's really cool and fun. I don't have any of the human type legs, but I've just noticed I do have legs on people, so I could use those. But her legs were so much more fun. They had legs going in all different directions. Off on a tangent again. Gee, it's a night like that. I think I'm wanting this to hurry up so I can turn my heater back on. So just gluing those down with a normal, like a kid's type glue stick, and that page is nearly done. I think the last thing I do is actually just do some black outlining on the face to make it stand out. I do apologise about a little bit of the wiggling. I am trying to get a better setup with my camera and my desk, but it's a work in progress. I'm hoping to build my own desk very soon. I've got 2 side cubbies and I've got a plank of board to put over the top of it. Just have to get the motivation to put one of the cubbies together because they come flat pack. One's already together. I had one. I found another flat pack in the shed. And just got to move everything around so it fit in where I want to fit it in. Been very busy with work lately. So just outlining some of the face just to make it pop a little bit more. I felt it was a little blending in a little. So I do have some still photos at the end for you to have a look at, and that's my page done. Thank you for listening tonight and going off on a tangent. I welcome all the new subbies that have popped on board recently. If you want to do those normal YouTube things, subscribe, like, and leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. I will catch you again soon, and I'm going to go put my heater back on. Bye for now.